Every now and then, we have problems to solve, either at home or at work. For those who work in manufacturing and quality, there are bound to be some kind of problem. Manufacturing issues, quality issues happen almost every day. At the lower level of proactiveness, we must be able to solve or manage a problem. So we shall look at the problem solving part first. This is the first video in the problem solving series, which is about understanding problems. Being able to solve problem is always an asset to the company. If you look at the top 10 important skills in the workforce over the 5 years in 2015 to 2020, complex problem solving is still number one, as you can see that other skills has changed in their position over the years. Therefore, it is an evergreen skills in the workforce because that is what justified for hiring people in the corporate world. Means that, especially in the corporate world, means that you have to learn how to solve problem every day. So the world might be evolved in every way. However, there's always some kind of a problem to solve to prove your value. Human is the one that created the problem, and human is the one that also gets the problem solved. Therefore, you will be an valuable asset to your company if you are a good problem solver. I have solved problem almost every day in my life, especially in the corporate world, and until I became very good at it and love solving problem, especially those challenging problems like cracking the Da Vinci codes. Let's look at what really is a problem. A problem is actually is a deviation between the actual and the desired performance. For example, if you want this kind of performances and suddenly there's a spike, means that there is a deviation. What is happening that should not be? And what is not happening that should be? So it is upside down. So something that's upside down. So the question that needs to be answered when you're solving problem is number one, customers. What are customers complaining? And where do we have the constraint that cause the problem? And also, even competitors can also pose a threat or problem to you. How do we perform against competitors? So this is some of the examples of the questions that needs to be answered when we look at what is the problem. So after looking at the definition of problem, next we would like to understand what is problem solving. Problem solving will enable us to be better. So it is really a systematic approach to define problem and create vast number of possible solutions without judging the solutions. Means that we have to establish the solution which will address this problem. And defining problem will determine the cause of the problem, then identify, prioritize, select solution, and finally implement solution. This is normally the systematic approach that is used in problem solving. So very important is that problem solving gives us an opportunity to learn, to grow, and improve a process. Being able to solve a challenging problem will actually bring you to the next level. are three levels of problem that could happen. Sometimes it could happen as a single event, like it's functioning normally and then suddenly there's a spike. So at this point, it's actually very easy to identify. So, and also single event could be traced to only one point of cause. Another type is that high level events with data available. Okay, so the process is supposed to behave like this, and then suddenly it has shifted up. So the data has shows that it's shifted up and is actually moderately difficult to identify the point of the cause. It could be a few causes, and it requires you to analyze the existing data and also maybe go to the place where the problem could happen. For example, in a manufacturing process, it could be one single assembly process that is very difficult cause the problem, or suddenly a replacement of an operator which caused the problem. So you have to go there and investigate on the problem. The last level of the problem is the most challenging one, is high level events that has no data available or don't even understand that it has occurred. Maybe it's until your customer has seen it. So it's a point of is the point of the cause is difficult to identify, and it requires you to analyze possible places of occurrence, maybe using some of the quality tools like 5 whys or the fishbone diagram, that we will need to identify what are the likely root cause that it will happen. Problem solving always begin with understanding that the problem exists and also establishing the problem statement. Then a team has to be formed with a collaboration from cross-functional team to brainstorm for possible root cause and also solution. And the mindset of the team has to be open. This is very important, as problem solving is not an individual effort, and it should come from all aspects, because the root cause could be coming from all areas as well. So next is that, how do we know there is a problem? Is there a customer complaint? That is the number one trigger in any company. So a problem awareness has to start from a complaint. Customers could also mean that external or internal customers. Even an operator in a manufacturing line could complain that there's some deviation in the parts. That means she is triggering for the problem, that the problem exists, and we really should thank her for that. So, and next is that, look at how is the number, what is the performance or the key parameters or maybe the quality metrics, has it deviated from the norm or from the goal? And okay, the awareness of the problem, when you look at it, so this one is that when you should act on it. Sometimes when you see that maybe there is a slight downtrend in the yield rate, so it's still not too bad, and it becomes like this, it is actually quite a big deal. But it's just that maybe some department, they will cover it up, they think that it's not a big deal, and finally the thing has exploded, that when the yield has significantly decreased. So have to admit that the problem really exists. And how do we handle problem? No, that means that no grip session of just imagine that everything is okay. And also, when we solve problem, we have to follow agenda very objectively, define the problem, go through all the steps in the problem solving, which will be discussed in the next video. Verify the existence, and also no finger pointing. Who is the cause of the problem? We would like to know what caused the problem and not who caused the problem. So the tools normally to define the problem is that who found it? Is it the customer or is it internally the operators? Why it happens? How it happens? And also when exactly it happens, at what date, what time, and what exactly how the description of how it deviated from the norm. So problem solving fundamentals will start with perceive the problem. It could be a very big weight problem because sometimes customers says that I have noise in my computer, so it's very weak. Do not know where does the noise comes from. Okay, so next is that we need to clarify with the 4W we learned just now, the previous slide, and 1H. So it's perceiving the problem and then really define exactly the real problem. It could be better than what is anticipated as something that is vague, the noise. So we will look at the noise and where does it comes from. It could be zoomed down to maybe one of the components or which side of the computers that's having the problem, and at that side what exactly is the assembly. So break it down, and after that analyze the root cause. Why? The root cause that normally the tools that can be used to analyze root cause are 5 whys and also cause and effect, the fishbone diagram, which I will cover in the in some other videos. And then finally develop the action plan. So the time span should be the most on understanding and define the problem and probably the root cause. And after that, it's actually very easy to develop an action plan. Unfortunately, a lot of people likes to reverse with a lot of action plans without understanding the root cause. Therefore, most of the time, problem really cannot get solved because they only look at the symptom and come up with the symptom, come up with some kind of solution just to address the symptom. For example, there's damaged component on a printed circuit board. They will just look at the operator and then they will train the operator. So this is something that is kind of surface as well. So yeah, how do we know there is a problem? This is an example that a scratch in the bezel. So scratch in the bezel actually happens quite commonly in a production line when there's some kind of handling. So the reject rate may be very small. Okay, and after that, it was found that in the outgoing, suddenly the reject rates gets high. So this is a problem. The norm should be this, and this is deviated from the norm. And what happened is that trace back to the incoming inspection, because at this junction, the supplier does not agree that it's their problem and still stated that it is the line handling problem. So what happened is that a simple ways of detecting where the problem comes from is to conduct or to plot the incoming inspection rate of this bezel, and found that normally the rate is 0 Okay, there's no reject or very few reject. However, this green line here, suddenly there's an increase, and this has caused the spike as well. With this data that is shown to the suppliers that during incoming inspection, the scratch on the bezel is already found, and then they agree that this is indeed their outgoing problem, and they will come in and resolve the problem, and also look at their manufacturing line, that is there some kind of miss at their site. So another one is that defining the problem. So as a printed circuit board that always happens, the failure at customer site. So is this due to supplier's fault? Because supplier is the one that supplies the printed circuit board. However, it always fails at customer side when it's assembled to the end assembly and is finger pointing back to the suppliers. After, and also why manufacturing test process is unable to capture internally. That's one of the questions asked. And finally, it was found that actually customer site is having a sudden surge in ESD that causes the failure. So it is very important to know that exactly where does the problem happens. Finally, I would like to share a quote by John Dewey, which has made famous by General Motors on a problem that is well defined is actually half solved, such as in the previous example, that we will need to understand the problem, defining the problem by using the 4 W's and 1 H: what, why, when, who, and how. The more information that we get related to the problem will lead to more understanding of the problem and finally solving it.
Do give me a thumbs up if you like and have benefited from today's video, which is especially prepared for you to hack into the key areas to achieve good results. Please do subscribe to this channel to get notified on the future video, and appreciate if you can leave a comment on what you would like to learn. I would also appreciate if you can share this channel with all your friends. Thank you, and see you in my next lesson. Bye!